Hey, fire prevention crew, welcome to Chapter 2. There is a PowerPoint and a lesson plan in our module for Chapter 2 that I want you to look at, but there are a few things that I wanted to talk about real quick that are kind of associated with the assignment that we're going to do in the Zoom this next week. So again, the Zooms are not required, but hopefully you at least watch this and you'll get similar information to what we're going to do in the Zoom. As you know, we talked about the history of fire prevention, and as time went on, more and more fire departments over the 20th century started adding fire prevention bureaus, especially after the America's Burning study done in the 1970s that addressed the issues of why does America have such a horrible fire prevention record, or why do we have one of the highest fatalities and highest amount of fires given that we're a first world country. So as a result, many states started stepping up to the bat, and different organizations, governmental organizations, which our book calls public organizations, public fire organizations. So different fire departments, but also states started setting up, and like California, we have the Office of the State Fire Marshal. So I'm just going to show you some of the different ways that fire prevention is done from the state level all the way down to local level. But what we're going to do in our project is kind of look at it a little bit more in depth, but I'm going to kind of give you most of the answers in this. So when you go on the internet, you can find a lot of stuff about different fire departments, but the one thing I want to make very, very clear, there is no cut and dry way to do fire prevention. Many fire departments set up a fire prevention bureau. It's very common, and Los Angeles County, Ventura County, LA City, Orange County Fire Authority, a lot of the larger departments that most of you that are students in this course know about have fire prevention bureaus. But some fire departments are smaller. You go back east, some are 100% volunteer, or maybe the only person that's paid is the chief. Sometimes the only person that's paid is the fire inspector. There are some states that all fire prevention is done by the state fire marshal. So there's so many ways to skin this cat. So let's start at, for us, in California, one of the most important fire prevention bureaus is the Office of the State Fire Marshal. So we're on their webpage, and you can see here they're a part, CAL FIRE is under the Office of the State Fire Marshal. And the State Fire Marshal and the bureau that is under Mark Richwine, this is him, they do a lot of fire prevention throughout the state. They have responsibility for assemblies, education, for institutions, camps, laboratories, and larger residences like hotels and condominium homes. Not convalescent homes is part of institutions. But so they have a lot of responsibility over that, over all fire protection equipment throughout the state, all hazardous materials, including fireworks, explosives, film. So all of these responsibilities come under the fire marshal. So let me change pages here. This is the state's fire marshal. Previously, it was a female, Tanya Hoover. And Tanya was an extremely good fire marshal, and she is the one who worked hard to get residential fire sprinklers required since 2011 on. We now require any new home to have fire sprinklers. So Mark Richwine is our current This is an appointed position. And then under him, Wendy Collins is the Assistant State Fire Marshal. And under the Fire Marshal, there are a lot of different parts. There's training, and then there's the fire prevention portion of it. In fact, not far from a lot of you, out in Monrovia, I live further away out in Santa Clarita, but a lot of you live in areas like San Dimas and Laverne and Pomona. And in Monrovia is the office, the South Office of the State Fire Marshal. The main office is up in Sacramento in the capital. So they have many different parts. Code development, fire and life safety, fire engineering and fire investigations, pipeline safety and hazmat. CUPA has to do with hazmat. And of course, there's state fire training, where you can get certifications as a firefighter 1, but there's also fire prevention training programs for a fire prevention inspector and inspector level 2. I got state fire training at a level 2. Back then they called it a fire protection specialist, I think it was. But now they just call it Fire Inspector 1, Fire Inspector 2. They also have their wildfire prevention planning and engineering. So, here on their website, they tell you all of the different emails and web pages for those different portions. I do a lot with motion picture and entertainment. The guy who's in charge of that is really a sharp guy. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he does an enormously good job. So that's the state. So they have themselves organized under the State Fire Marshal, and truly he is in charge of all things fire in the state of California. So just like we have the National Fire Administration, we have a state fire administration. Now, each fire department then will have their own fire marshal, and this is usually a chief position underneath the main chief. So let's look at how LA County Fire has themselves organized. Well, their chief is Daryl Osby, and under him he has some executive staff. But then there's the business operations chief, the emergency operations. Now, most people who want to be a firefighter, this is the division you want to work in, right? You want to be in a fire station doing your, runs and fighting fire and all of that kind of fun stuff. I was mostly in the North Ops Bureau in Division 3, and I loved working out here. So most of you live in the East Operations Bureau, which covers the whole east end of LA County. Well, where does fire prevention fall? Well, fire prevention falls over here under business operations. Now, there's leadership and professional standards over here. That's a whole different, return to work, professional performance. They have risk management, all of that kind of stuff. But right here, now this is an old one because Nick DeValle, I don't believe, is the deputy chief anymore of prevention. But this is the Prevention Bureau, and it has 3 different portions. They have the Fire Prevention Division, which do inspections throughout the county. Of course, fire stations do inspections of the more smaller businesses, and then the bigger businesses, the higher risk facilities, the Fire Prevention Bureau does that. Well, then there's also Health Hazmat Division. They deal with all of the hazmat issues throughout LA County in their jurisdiction. And then there's a Forestry Division. They do a lot of the wildland. They work in cooperation with the fire stations and with the other wings of the Fire Prevention Bureau. So that's kind of how LA County does it. And here's their website. And they're broken up, just like their operations, into a north, Central, and East region. Now, I worked in the North region, so the North region has a couple of offices that just do inspections, and they do commercial, industrial inspections. But they also house these special units. The film unit is in Pacoima, and the Pacoima area. And then the special units, and this is where I worked in the schools and institutions unit, where we looked at public, private, and parochial schools, community colleges, daycare centers, hospitals, surgery centers, any kind of assisted living center, and jails. So that was really fun. Inspecting jails was not my favorite thing to do. I will tell you that some of these jails, that there is an odor in there that is unique. It's horrible. So I used to always I couldn't hold my nose, but I kind of held, I only breathed out of my mouth the whole time I was there. So I did some very large prisons, including the North County Correctional Facility, which is, I believe it's the biggest in the sense of acreage prison facility in Los Angeles County. And then they also have the arson investigation unit. So the Central region has some different units in addition to the commercial, and the East region has the petrochem unit, which they do all things having to do with oil. So that's how LA County does it. Let's look at LA City. LA City, here's their, well, this is the brush part. Let me go to the organization chart. So not as good of an organization chart for us to see the whole thing, but they have a fire commission. So they have the board of commissioners, and under them is the appointed fire chief. I got to meet him. I was very impressed when my son-in-law promoted to fire inspector. So they have an emergency operations. This is where you want to work, right? You want to be doing the emergency stuff. But if you end up in fire prevention, you would be over here under administrative operations. And here's the Fire Prevention Bureau. Now, some firefighters love working in fire prevention. I did not want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I fought it. I had an injury, and then I had another injury, and somebody suggested after my injury that I maybe go somewhere that's a 40-hour work week and, take it easy for a while, let my back and shoulders hopefully repair. And I said, no way. And then I got injured again, and finally I broke down, and I went into fire prevention, kicking and screaming. Well, I ended up liking it. I was very surprised. The best thing was I got to sleep at night. So I enjoyed that, and I liked sleeping at my own home with my wife instead of a bunch of snoring, stinky men. So, it was eventually something that I grew to really enjoy doing. So one of the big things, though, is are you going to use firefighters who are badged personnel that are part of the safety? They cost a lot more, right? Or are you going to use civilians? So, well, I wanted to show you one thing here. Never mind. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, here it is. I am going to do it. LAFD, one of the things that they've been looking at is using drones for doing fire inspections for brush. And there's a couple of people driving this. There's some that are against it. There are some things you just can't see very well from above. And so there's, some that are saying, hey, this is technology of the future. Let's use drones. We'll take pictures, yada, yada. Well, some people are kind of concerned about the privacy aspect of that. You're using drones over a whole neighborhood, and, you're taking pictures of people's backyards. Maybe they're in the backyard. Who knows? They're out swimming or whatever. There are other things that people have brought up that you can't really get a good visual from above of the brush. So, but it's something they're testing. I thought that was really interesting, looking at the technology of the future. So, I wanted to go back to this on LA City. They're broken up into many different portions under their bureau, and they have a brush unit, and that's where my son-in-law is currently working. And they also have other units. So they've got a brush unit. Here it is. They have a cannabis unit. They have a hazmat unit, a film unit, hydrants and access, schools unit, residential apartments, public assemblies, and all of this industrial commercial. These are all different wings under the Fire Prevention Bureau with inspectors working in there. One neat thing that LA City does, their inspectors, it's a promoted position. You have to test to go in there. I just bid from being an engineer to being an inspector. Fortunately, I did get some good training, but LA City says, hey, we want you to already train yourself. We want you to do the research and take a really difficult test, and only the best are going to get this job. So it's a promoted position. Not only because they do that, they pay a lot better. So their inspectors make just under captain's wages. I mean, barely. And then their inspector level 2 makes almost as good a wages as what LA City calls a captain 2, which is a much higher level, just under a chief. So that's really cool. But again, as I said, some fire departments like LA County and LA City are still using badged personnel, but a lot of fire departments are moving away from that. And one of them is Pasadena. Pasadena, Ventura County, I'm not sure about over there on the east end of anybody, but they have gone private. And when I kind of had a big choice between did I want to be a fire inspector as a civilian after I was forced to retire from my health issues, or did I want to continue to be a teacher? Well, the more I was a teacher, the more I loved it. But while I was in that kind of debate, Pasadena actually hired me, and I worked for them for only 2 days. So I worked for 2 days and then I retired. I decided that I would rather teach, and I love doing this. I've been doing it now for 11 years and will continue to teach, and I kind of made that decision, and I'm glad I did for a lot of reasons I can't go into right now. But I just wanted to show you that, so they hired this group of inspectors, and mostly what they hired were retirees. So this guy and then this guy, these two guys were hired with me, and this one and this one. He worked for LA City. I forget who he worked for. And the three of us were their first hires. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I want to keep teaching. I'm very glad I did that. So this woman here and this man were hired to take those other spots. They only have one badged inspector now, and that's this guy. And then this person, I believe she's a fire prevention engineer. She does the plans checking, if I remember correctly. So they have chosen to go civilian. So why civilian versus... now they wear a badge. You can see they've got a badge on. So it's not that they don't wear a badge. They're sworn, but they're at a totally different level. Now, I can tell you what they make to start because that's what I was hired at, and that was $30 an hour. So that's pretty good. That's really good pay. And then it went up from there. The longer you stay, you get, pay raises up to a certain level. So it's pretty good. But they worked 4 10-hour days, and so $30 an hour is way better than what... So he's making as a badged firefighter working in as an inspector a lot more than they are. A lot more. So I can't say exactly what he's making, but it costs more because safety personnel get paid more because of the risk level and the training involved. So their retirement costs more, they get better benefits, and they get higher wages. So going to civilian personnel is a cost-saving choice, but not only that, one of the problems with fire prevention is this guy, as soon as he's done his time in prevention, he's going to want to go back to the fire station. So a lot of times, especially in LA County, we have people who go into prevention, serve their 2 years, and boom, they're gone. And it makes for, in fact, I was there 3 or 4 years, and at the end of that 4 years, I really felt like I was getting the handle on it and the hang of it. And I was kind of getting to the point where I was the guy that other people called to ask how to do things. More than once, I had the chief of fire prevention call me up and ask me to do something special because he knew that I could get it done. And so, it took me 3 or 4 years, though, to get there. These guys, well, first of all, he worked for another department before he got hired. He worked for LA City before he got hired, and then they came in here. Well, they're already been there 10 years, and they're going to continue to stay. And, she's a lot younger. He's a lot younger. They're probably even going to go 20, 30 years in prevention. So you end up with more seasoned veterans that have a better understanding of fire prevention. So there are a lot of different reasons for civilian versus badged personnel or sworn personnel, but it's a debate that's ongoing, and every fire department has to make their own choice. They can organize it differently. A smaller department like Pasadena, he does all the new construction. He does all the high-rise. I don't know if this woman or this guy replaced me, but I was going to do all the schools and institutions. They have a very big hospital there and a lot of colleges and high schools in Pasadena. A lot more colleges than people realize. So that was that position. And I think the other one was just doing industrial and commercial inspections. And then he did the special events. Pasadena, has the Rose Bowl, the Rose Parade. They have a lot of big special events go on in Pasadena. They have a big convention center. So that's what he does, is all the special events and public assembly stuff. So different ways to skin this cat. This was longer than I wanted it to be, but watch the PowerPoint and look through the lesson plan, and we will finish this up. At the end of Chapter 2, there is a quiz for Chapters 1 and 2. If you come to the Zoom, you'll do this project in person, and you just get points for being there. If you don't come to the Zoom, you need to watch this video and go through the other stuff and do the little assignment about researching a fire department and how they organize their fire prevention bureau. Okay, that's enough for today. Contact me with any questions. Have a great day.